Hi everybody, I'm Terry Ryder, founder of hotspotting.com.au, and today I'm talking about the important regional city of Townsville with my special guest Todd Pearce of Page Pearce, which is the regular winner of the city's Agency of the Year award. Now, one of the standout features of this year, dominated by the pandemic, is that regional areas have been much less impacted by COVID-19 in terms of health consequences, but also that regional cities are much less impacted in terms of their property markets. Indeed, in some ways, strong regional cities are benefiting from the focus that has been placed on their safety, their lifestyle, and the strength of their local economies. Now, I see Townsville as a wonderful example of the many benefits for property investors in thinking regional when choosing when to buy and where to buy. I wonder how many Australians know that Townsville is Northern Australia's largest city with a population approaching 200,000, that Townsville is the largest garrison city in Australia, which refers to the major presence of military facilities, that Townsville has the largest regional hospital in Queensland, and that it has Queensland's third largest port, and that the opening of the city's new $250 million sports stadium in February was celebrated with a concert by Sir Elton John playing to an audience of 20,000 fans. So in many ways, Townsville is Queensland's most outstanding regional city. And today I'm speaking to Townsville's leading real estate agent, Todd Pearce. So Todd, welcome.
Thanks, Terry.
Look, I'm aware that while many real estate agents around the country have been struggling a little bit, and some have been struggling a lot in the current period, things are going pretty well for you and your agency and for the Townsville market generally. So tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think when COVID did come into effect for, the majority of Australia, but let alone the world, but, late March, early April, we all thought the world, the sky was falling in, and here we go again. And one of the things, I suppose, for Townsville, Terry, we've been through a lot, since probably 2014, when the start of the mining downturn for our regional areas hit us hard, and that took on a little while. And then not long after that, we had Cyclone Yazi, so that was another hurdle. We had Yabulu with Clive Palmer and the issues out there at Yabulu and a loss of over 700, 800 jobs. Local families were affected. Cyclone Debbie come along. We had the Townsville floods, and now we've got COVID. So next year, I think who knows? I was joking with my wife. I said we must be due for another cyclone next year, and I got slapped pretty hard. So, look, I think we've weathered a lot over the last 6 years, and for us and our team, it was just a matter for us to say, hey, look, we've been through so much. Let's just work through and something that none of us are would have been, none of us have been through. For us, it's just knuckle down and put in our systems and procedures and follow them. So for us, April was a normal month. And when I say normal, I look at our history and our stats and our KPIs. So we've been keeping them since our inception, since 2004. So I can look back at every April and just wanted to see how April this year compared to the, say, Aprils of the last 5 years. And ironically, we did the same numbers in sales volume, and for our rent roll, it was pretty much the same. So April we got through unscathed, which was good. And I suppose since then, the regional inquiries and that has just been through the roof for us. Townsville buyer inquiry, even though we couldn't do open homes or we had to do inspections by appointment, our actually inquiry via internet portals, the two majors as well as our own, was way up. I think it was 51% up in inquiries in that first April, and that flow over into May with easing of inspections for our sales team. We've got quite a large sales team, Terry. We've got 7 full-time sales reps, so keeping them busy and being able to be active through this period has also been another learning curve for us and my sales manager. But since then, we've just gone gangbusters, and we've just had a record month for May, and June has just followed that up. So
It's really good to hear you're doing so well. I'm sort of wondering, I'm aware that that you regularly win the Agency of the Year award in Townsville. Is it because you're just doing the job so well, or is it because Townsville also is doing very well, notwithstanding the background issues?
Of course, we're doing the job very well, Terry. No, it's one of those things. Look, to our management and staff here and our sales team, we've put a lot of effort in to build this team. So that's one thing. But Townsville has been through so much. One of the things I think is there's no meat left on the bone. Our property values have dropped considerably since 2012. And in some areas in Townsville, people have had massive losses from when they purchased. The height of the market was 2009. Some of the viewers out there may be some of those people that bought then and know what I'm talking about. And we've had investors and homeowners lose anywhere between 30 and 50%. But those days are gone. We've seen people now, the inquiry levels have come up because property values, it's cheaper to buy something established than go and build at the moment. So yeah, I think with people being in COVID, I think people have done a lot of research. They've had a lot of spare time on their hands and looking at where they may want to move to or where they may want to invest. And that's what we're seeing is that, just today, what is it? It's the 23rd of June, and we've got, we put on last week a complex of 5 strata titled units as a complex, family owned for 20 years, built well by a local reputable builder, by the Lancini family, which is a well-known family in Townsville. And that was last Monday, and today we secured that contract and we had multiple offers on that. And and that's five units, 3 townhouses, 2 units, 800,000, returning somewhere around $68,000-$70,000 a year in rent for that property. So that was an investor, and we've had investors from Sydney and Brisbane and local investors. So that's a good sign where we haven't really seen those metropolitan investors coming back into Townsville.
I think it's remarkable that Townsville has been through so much. Everybody's going through COVID-19, but as you articulated earlier, Townsville's been through a lot of other things, and it's still here, and it's showing resilience, and it's doing well. So let's perhaps talk about some of the background issues as to why Townsville is such a strong city. It's a substantial city, population nudging 200,000, but it's projected to be approaching 300,000 in about 15 years' time, according to the official government projection. So obviously it's a growth city.
Absolutely. Look, the infrastructure that's been put into the town and the region for the last 10 years has basically, you can see that they're doing that for that growth. Especially with the hospital, and it's going through another stage in increase its capacity. We are lucky, like you said, we do have a garrison city with Labarak Barracks, and I always look back and think, through these times, if we didn't have our government presence in Townsville, how we would really have been. So we're lucky in that sense, but I hate using the word lucky. It's one of those things. It's the town, not only the town, but the business owners and the local council have done a lot of hard work to get us through this. And one of the things I said to our team is, with COVID, we've been through so many different markets in the last 5 years. It's just another change in the market. It's just another market. And if we hadn't been through those past types of markets, like the downturn and the mining and that, then I think we would have gone, the sky's falling in a lot more. But because we've had that experience, we were able to get through that and educate our sellers and our landlords that it's just another speed bump, and we'll get through it. Yeah.
Now, the 2 things that really stand out for me about Townsville that makes it so solid is firstly the diversity of the economy. You referred to the defence industry as being an important part, but there's so many other elements to it. Obviously, a city like Townsville is impacted in terms of tourism, but there's so many other factors which I think help to shield Townsville from the worst impacts of COVID-19. Very strong in government offices, transport, energy, links to the resources sector, education. And the other factor is the infrastructure spend, where you referred to the strong infrastructure that exists, but there's current projects that are underway on the pipeline totaling well over $10 billion for Townsville, and that generates a lot in terms of economy and jobs.
Absolutely. One of the ones I see every week. We've got an island off the coast here, 7 k's off, called Magnetic Island, and I go over there regularly. And is the port. The Townsville port is going through redevelopment and expansion. And as you hop on the ferry to head over to the tropical paradise we have also, which is a great thing about coming to Townsville, is just seeing each week how that is just progressing. So that's exciting for us, and it's a pretty large port as it is, but it's going to be. I'm not quite sure how large it will be. Did you say the third largest port, or?
Currently the third largest, and getting bigger. Trade through the port of Townsville regularly surpasses 1 million tonnes per month, which is substantial.
Yeah. And that's a $1.6 billion project, the port expansions for
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, we referred to the military presence. Townsville is regarded as Australia's largest garrison city. There's the Laverick Army Barracks. There's also the RAF base, Townsville, the Townsville Field Training Area, and the Port of Townsville's Berth 10, which is designed for the Royal Australian Navy. So that's obviously a substantial part of the economy. It must generate a lot for Townsville in terms of economic activity and jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've got a large rent roll of over 1,200 properties. So even though there's quite a lot of defence housing in Townsville, there's not enough for who's there. So a lot of the defence personnel are our tenants as well. And those tenants actually end up purchasing their own properties here and becoming landlords, because they realise that Townsville is a great place to invest. When they do get transferred, they've got a property back here, because the majority of them actually move back here because of our lifestyle that we have and they enjoy. So, nothing. No one can knock Laverack Barracks. It's probably, if you're not the heart, it's part of the soul of Townsville.
Yeah. Education and science also a very big part of the economy and the life of Townsville. City's got over 100 education facilities, includes James Cook University, the CSIRO, the Australian Institute of Marine Science. James Cook University alone has about 13,000 students enrolled. So that's obviously also very, very big for the local community and the economy.
Yeah, spot on. Same as with Laverack. The students and teachers there are a big part of the Townsville residential market in renting and purchasing. We have a lot of overseas students with that with the marine science part of JCU. So it's a big attraction to overseas students. Although a bit quiet at the moment, but that they're the things that, as you said, Ames, and we've got Grumper. It's just the region is just set up right. It's just it's a bit bloody hot in summer. That's what some people just don't like about Townsville. But if you get through those 3 or 4 months, it's a great spot to live in. Yeah,
government services are also very important. I mean, Townsville, as far as I'm concerned, is the capital of Northern Australia, and there's over 2,000 sort of public servants working across various government offices in Townsville, and that's also an important factor.
Yeah, look, tax office and Centrelink have 2 major departments, or large departments, based here in the city. In fact, that building that the tax office and Centrelink are in has just had a massive record sale. I think it just sold for $94 million. One of the super funds have picked that up, and commercial wise, the town is starting to see a lot of investment there as well. Although with COVID, the commercial guys are more running around trying to look after their tenants and keep them there and do some negotiating with landlords. On the residential side, Terry, and I think this is the thing for us is, we've got a lot of areas that for our region in Townsville, but COVID-wise, if tenants affected, we haven't been we haven't seen that like other areas in tourist areas. So with hospitality workers and that. So we've been very lucky also that we've dodged a bullet with rents not being paid by tenants that have been COVID affected. In our rent roll of about 1,200 properties, we've had about 11 tenants where we've assisted them and negotiated on behalf of them and the landlord to get them through this period, which just shows that, you know, we're pretty strong in our structure of Townsville.
Yeah. And now most people wouldn't see Townsville as a mining town. Obviously it's not, but it does have strong links to the resources and energy sector, with a lot of major operations actually headquartered in Townsville, and also a source for fly workers, with Adani as a major presence increasingly in the town.
Yeah, so I live near the airport, and even though flights have been cancelled, but flights for our fly-in, fly-out workers are still going ahead. So, you know, they obviously were following what they had to, but Townsville is one of those, it's under the radar, where fly-in, fly-out workers choose to use Townsville as their base, and to fly wherever, you know, in central Queensland, or even from Townsville. A lot of fly-in, fly-out workers fly to WA.
Yeah. Well, wherever got a lot of workers for, you know, the iron ore mines, etc. in Western Australia, are sourced out of Queensland, and they make the journey regularly back and forth.
Yep, they do. So, and that's where we've had some families that have, you know, notified that they when we've gone to do routine inspections and they've said, oh, my husband's still stuck in WA because of the COVID and the restrictions of travelling. So it's probably they thought it's better for him to stay there so he can earn the income without crossing the borders and going into quarantine. So yep, quite a few fly-in, fly-out workers go basically everywhere from Townsville to. And that just shows that the lifestyle, and it's a pretty safe place to live.
Yeah, sure. So against all that backdrop of a strong and I think, and most importantly, diverse economy that's been holding up very well this year, and is well set up to go forward very strongly as we emerge from the lockdown phase. Against that backdrop, the property market looks extremely attractive to both to home buyers and investors. The first thing that stood out for me when I was preparing for this broadcast was that not only did Townsville have quite low vacancies going into this phase, that actually in the last couple of months the vacancy rates actually dropped in Townsville, and all the postcodes are well under 3%, many of them below 1.5%, and that's an outstanding achievement. It says something about the strength of the economy, that in a phase when many cities across Australia have rising vacancy rates for obvious reasons, Townsville is actually bringing their vacancy rates down.
Absolutely, and our rents we've actually had an increase in our rents as well, so which has been a long time coming. So since COVID, you know, we often joke that, you know, we did see that a lot of tenants through when things were a bit tough actually moved in together. So what I mean by that, we had tenancies where there was two couples living rather than one couple renting one house, just so, you know, to keep the cost down. And I think since COVID, people have logged on, had a look. Either they can't enjoy the company of their flatmates or roommates anymore, and we're seeing now more couples are actually renting on their own rather than you know, two or three adults or two lots of couples. So that's one of the things I think people realise, that, you know, it's time for us to move on in that. So our rent roll has a vacancy rate of the moment at 1.6. I met with my BDM this morning, my business development manager who looks after new landlords, and she said, where can I get some more business from? And I said, the good old fashioned way is pick the phone up and start calling your list and just seeing who's out there, because you know, no one walks around with a placard saying, you know, I'm looking for an agent to rent my house. And since COVID, to be honest, Terry, we've had a lot of private landlords contact us and have handed their properties over because of so much going on around property and whatnot, that they just didn't want to have the burden of looking after a privately managed property. So we've picked up quite a few, you know, private landlords.
Yeah, I think for a business like yours with a big rent roll, I think this COVID period has shown private investors the folly of trying to self-manage property. I always think anyone who has an investment property and tries to manage themselves is a little bit crazy. That you should always have a professional manager. And I think that's been reinforced by the current situation. The changes to the rules, politicians making up policy on their own, etc. It's very important to have a good manager on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, legislation changes are going to happen all the time, but some of them that were happening were like, how do we get around this and whatnot. And look, I commend anyone giving it a go. Property management is not an easy job, and especially when changes occur, that we have to be on top of it. And it's one of those things. If you've given it a go and you've got plenty of time on your hands and you can look after your own portfolio, well and good. But there's a lot more involved than just collecting the rent.
Oh God, yes. So low vacancy rates is a standout feature for Townsville at the moment, and not just low, but they're actually falling. The trend is downwards, which is an outstanding achievement. But the next thing that stands out for me is the affordability of housing in Townsville. Most of the suburbs, or many of the suburbs, have median prices somewhere in the 200,000, and most of the others are perhaps in the 300,000. So that's a pretty good level of affordability for people on the outside looking in.
Absolutely. I've just had some friends, his father's, he's elderly, but they're in Morayfield, just outside Brisbane. Yeah. And he spoke to his dad and his mum, and they're in their 70s, early 70s, and just said, look, we're up in Townsville, our grandkids are up here, what do you want to do? They made the decision that they're going to move to Townsville. So they picked up a property here in Townsville, which is a low-set masonry block, 20-year-old, 3-bedroom, fully aircon, solar, double lock-up garage, ensuite to the main, and a pool for $330,000. They're 5 kilometres from the city, maybe 7 at a pinch. Yep, the property probably needs some new carpets and new curtains and a paint, but for $330,000, you can't get the land and house for under $450 if you're going to build. So there's some great opportunity there, and these folks are having a sea change, if you want to call it a tree change or whatever. But at their age, that their son was concerned and he couldn't move, but they were happy to move up and be with the great grandkids and that opportunity. Now they sold their house in Morayfield for overs. And sold that in 2 days. So whether or not Moray feels, a happening area there, so they're gonna move to Townsville, and I think timing wise is good. As I said before, there's not much fat left on the bone for homes, and that's why I think people are starting to say, hey, there's value in Townsville, and if we don't look at doing something soon, then maybe there's something happening. And in January, February, March quarter, it was our best quarter in 17 years in business, and we were seeing green shoots. And April was a speed bump, but those green shoots have started again. So I know I'm a bit biased, but I'm optimistic that if this keeps flowing, that we can start to see some capital growth in our properties.
Yeah, and we know that Townsville in the past has had an outstanding record on capital growth. There's that in the earlier, perhaps I suppose 2002, 2000 up to 2007 or 8. There was multiple years where Townsville was delivering double-digit growth in median prices. It's overdue for another spurt, and it feels like it's coming into another growth phase.
Yeah, it does. And no one's immune from what we've been through, Terry. I purchased a family home in 2009 and sold it late last year, and we lost quite a considerable amount. But we made the decision to move closer to the city, and we made the decision to do it before this year because I personally thought that I could see this growth happening again. And yet we lost on one, but we gained on the other. And so this is what I believe. I've been doing real estate in Townsville for nearly 30 years, and that was just the reason. In fact, we weren't even on the market. We weren't even looking at property. I just said to my wife one weekend, I think we should buy this property because of this reason. And it's around. And you mentioned before around the stadium, and that was my thought as well. I've looked at capital cities where they've done major stadium redevelopments like the Lane Park. so Suncorp Stadium, around Paddington and that area before that redevelopment wasn't that sought after area, in my opinion. And I've looked at other areas like the Adelaide Oval redevelopment and looked at what's happened to the property market around them after the developments happened. And that was my thought process around the Queensland Bank Stadium.
You referred to an uptick in buyer demand in Townsville. What about land sales, given that the federal government is going to give 25 grand to people building a new home, and we're hearing reports around the country of that precipitated a lot of interest in land estates. Are you feeling that in Townsville as well?
Yeah, look, this month alone, we've had some listings of vacant land, some that have been on our books for over 3 years. They're gone. They've been bought up. Developers scrambling to see if they can. They've been holding off on developing some blocks of land, so they're scrambling to see if they can get them up and running before the 31st of December. My understanding is with those grants, if you can secure a block of land and a house contract, and by the end of the 31st of December, you can get those grants, I believe.
Yeah.
And the reports that I've spoken to is a couple of builders and some land developers is that the land sales, I wouldn't say going through the roof, but they're progressing that way.
Yeah. And from the viewpoint of property investors, we've talked about low vacancies, we've talked about the high level of affordability, the attractive pricing in Townsville, but the other thing that stands out for me is the rental yields, and you've referred already to the fact that with low vacancies, rents are starting to rise again. But just looking at the median yields for various suburbs, there are many with median rental yields for houses above 6%, including one that's a nudge above 7%. Now, for big city dwellers looking for somewhere to put their money, the affordability and the rental yields must be attractive.
Yeah, they've got to anything that can give you a multiple is attractive, but a good multiple it would be something like an investment of a duplex or a multi-unit dwelling like the one I mentioned earlier that's just gone under contract today. Those properties do get a lot of interest from southern investors or purchasers. But yeah, just on houses alone at the moment, that purchasing at the prices that they're at, I believe the rental yields are good, as you said, but I think they could improve with demand so low on amounts of properties vacant at the moment. So we're seeing multiple applicants, Terry. In fact, with COVID, we had to change our application process. Whereas the old thinking was you go out, show the tenants, give them a viewing of the property, and then give them an application form and send them away and hope they come back. Well, that's changed now. All applicants are to do it online, and we've asked them to put the application in before they view the property because there was so many tenants looking. And then we would then get the approval by the landlord, and then we invite all those tenants back to come and view the property to see who would want the property. And that's just through COVID. We've changed that now back to all applications are online for us to have less paper handling, but we're now doing OFIs due to the restrictions lifted. So the demand seems to be there. We just don't know why, and there's lots and lots of inquiry, and we can't put our finger on it. I've spoken to other residential real estate agents, and they're the same. It's not just Page and Pearce. So it's a good sign for Townsville if it's all the agents are reaping from this inquiry.
Yeah, and you're getting multiple applications for the one property, which is great for the investor owner. They can look at people's credentials and references and pick a really good tenant from those that are interested.
Yeah, it's affordability. You can have the rental references, that's great, but the affordability, the affordability is the big thing for the landlord. Is that what's this person do for a living, and is the rent going to be coming in?
Yeah,
that's a big thing. As an investor, we just want to make sure that our investment's covered.
Yeah. Now, the thing that always interests me the most about a location when we're preparing these reports, such as the one we've done on Townsville, is what does the future hold? The present might be looking rosy, but we're always interested in the future. What's planned, what's underway, and the thing that stands out for me about Townsville is that there is just so much which would generally come under the heading of infrastructure that's underway or in planning. I mean, it ends, the list that we've got in our report is over $20 billion. And I think about the Sunshine Coast and how that kind of spending on infrastructure has actually transformed that city from a tourist town into a serious regional city, an international city. And I see that potential starting to emerge for Townsville as well.
Yeah, I too, Terry, is I'm I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we've been since 2009, 10. Our market has been it's been tough, and especially those folks that bought prior to then, and then looking at selling and the decline of the market and prices, and a lot of people have jumped ship and a lot have hung in there. So for those that are hanging in there, it could be rosy. But I do too look at that, and especially if you can move to a regional city and like Townsville, or even something closer to like Sunny Coast, and you can do a lot of your business online, or you can work from home and whatnot. Why not do that in a regional capital city or a regional city rather than living in metropolitan? The biggest thing I'm hearing is what is the infrastructure on NBN and speeds of internet and that. Those kind of questions are starting to be asked. Not so often, but the sales agent will come in and go, oh, how do I find exactly what, how we find out about this speed, because this person's predominantly is going to be working from home and they want to know where the area they're in. So these are the type of questions that I think we may see it change. The other thing for Townsville is that airport. That's coming up with another expansion and an upgrade. And you can jump on a plane at 6 a.m. In Townsville, and you can be in Brisbane by 8:40. So they're the type of things that Townsville has for us, that we can access pretty much Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne within half a day.
Yeah. And it's also an international airport. Many people perhaps don't realise that. So once we get back to what we used to call normal, that becomes an important factor for Townsville as well.
I hope so, mate. I've been here all my life, so 50 years in Townsville, and I've never travelled internationally from our own airport. I've had to go elsewhere, but it's on and off. It's hit and miss, Townsville, with international. We do have Cairns only 400 kilometres north of us, which has a pretty good international airport there. But I think if we have that international airport and we can access areas like New Zealand, Singapore, quite easily, then that'll open Townsville up to a whole lot more investors and folks that may want to move here.
So you mentioned Singapore, which is timely because one of the things I have in front of me here is reference to the proposed $2 billion Australian-Singapore military training initiative at Greenvale, which is not too far away, and imagine that a lot of traffic would come through Townsville in relation to that. It's a very big enterprise, because I think it's proposed that this arrangement with Singapore, with their military training, that 14,000 Army personnel conduct Army training every year there. So that's got to be a factor. One of many, of course, that's coming up, but it's a big one.
It is a big one, and in that sense, if that that proceeds, I think Singapore Airlines will be flying directly into Townsville, bringing those personnel in. So, and anyone who's been to Singapore, it's a great location. So I'd put my hand up and use that facility to fly internationally to Singapore, definitely. So, but with the Army and in conjunction with the Singapore Army, that's another great avenue for Townsville, and that's been on the cards for a while. It's just there's been a few hiccups, and I think COVID's put a little bit of a stop on that at the moment.
Yeah. Now you mentioned moving a little bit closer into town to be close to the infrastructure in the city. I'm just looking at the reference in the report to $1.9 billion CBD makeover, the Townsville City Waterfront Priority Development Area, where they're expecting that 30,000 people will be living and working within 10 years. So that's big for Townsville.
Yeah, it is. Well, 4 of us have moved there, so they can count us.
Okay, so make that 30,004.
Well, in fact, my daughter who's 25 just purchased her own property in the city as well. So she's moved in there with mum and dad, but worked out that it's better time to leave the nest, and she's purchased a unit in the inner city. So I could probably I know probably at least 10 friends or associates that have done the same thing since we've moved. So it's more about, for us, lifestyle. The facilities out where we were living were great for our kids growing up, sporting facilities and accessibility for that, terrific. But having said that, even if you lived in the city, to get to anything for your children's education or for children's sporting, you're in the car for no longer than 20 minutes. I'm not a big, I don't like driving. I'd rather be there like that. And for 20 minutes to me, I'd go, oh God, who'd live out there? Well, I used to live out there, and it suited us as our kids grew up. So Townsville's diverse it doesn't matter what you're looking for and what age your family are. There's so much available here.
Yeah, the ability to access everything you need so easily and with such a little travel time is such a big factor. And I'm just wondering, you referred to people earlier working remotely. This is becoming a significant trend that's going to impact favourably on regional areas across Australia, that the lockdown phase forced people to work from home, and a certain proportion of them are going to make it a permanent arrangement with benefits both for themselves and their employer. Are you starting to see some demand coming out of that for Townsville people from bigger cities saying we don't actually need to be in the big city anymore? We can have this better lifestyle, much cheaper, and work from home.
Well, I haven't seen it in terms of the inquiry yet, but it's the talk, and it's not only in our industry, but it's across the board. I do have a mate. He's a newlywed. And his wife moved to Townsville and is set up remotely, and she might fly to Brisbane once a fortnight now, just to be in those meetings that you have to be in. But she's moved here, and she loves it. And the commute that she was doing in the Brisbane, even though Brisbane's not that bigger capital city in terms of traffic, but I'm seeing that from her, and she's talking to her friends down in Brisbane saying, Townsville's just one of those great cities. So yeah. I think we'll see more and more. I think people don't like change, Terry, and I think they've got to get over the hurdle of saying, oh, it's a huge change for us to do. But I think once they realise the benefits, and that's the benefits of Townsville or regional towns along our coast, is that you can do anything and everything that you can do in the capitals. Yep, you may not get as many sporting events or music events or concerts and stuff like that, but it's a changing world, and for me and my wife, we do like to get away and jump on the plane just to go to something.
Speaking about major events, sporting and concert-wise, you do have the Queensland Country Bank Stadium in place now. That's a big facility. It's going to be fantastic for Townsville going forward. We're getting to the point where the Cowboys are going to actually be able to play there in front of real live people pretty soon, I hope. Yep. And I referred to the grand opening with Sir Elton John there. So that's a facility that's going to be a bit of a game changer as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. Look, there was so much planned this year already for Townsville, and attraction, which would have been that the Wallabies were going to play and the Jillaroos were going to play. I think July. I don't know if that's still going ahead. I haven't heard, but just the murmurs of what's going to be able to happen in there is going to attract people in around Townsville to come and watch those events. But it's also going to make people aware to say, if you want to get to Townsville from Brisbane or Sydney, it's only an hour and a half to 2.5 hour flight to get to Townsville, spend a weekend in the sun, and get to visit Townsville to find out if you can actually live here as well.
Yeah. And not so far from the Barrier Reef Island. And also, you mentioned earlier Magnetic Island. I remember going there some years ago. Beautiful place, just offshore. I mean, it's got so much to offer, Townsville, in terms of lifestyle and tourist type attractions.
Yeah, well, look, we're that's the part that we're pretty spoilt, and that that area has probably been the most hit in our region for COVID, because it is our main tourist mecca. But it's has the largest habitat of koalas in nature. You can do the Forts Walk, and you'll be guaranteed to see a koala bear. Let alone, I'm a member of the golf club over there, and you'll see a koala bear there on the golf course now and then. So, it has so much to offer. It's pristine, and it's cost effective to get there and go over there.
Now, I imagine people retiring from other parts, maybe regional areas not far from towns, will be another part of the market. And what's important to retirees is medical facilities. And Townsville Hospital received a $450 million upgrade not so long ago, and there's other hospitals in the city that are also being upgraded. That's an important factor.
Yeah, huge. It's not only the Townsville General Hospital, it's also the Mater Hospital that's had going through major upgrade. Look, our regional areas as far as Bowen, as south and out to Charters Towers and Cloncurry, and then north up to the Herbert River area, Cardwell. That hospital that services such a big area, and you're right that we do get a lot of inquiries, and we do get a lot of people moving from those areas to Townsville to live close to the medical facilities. My own relatives in a little town called Bowen, I've been trying to get them to move up here because their sons are all around the world, but I understand their friends and family are in Bowen, and they do the travel for medication and appointments. And unfortunately, my uncle last week broke his hip and was flown to Townsville, to the Mater Hospital, and they've put him up there, and he's had an operation, but he's going to be there for 4 or 5 weeks. And with COVID, my auntie's lucky enough to be able to stay in the hospital with him if she wants, but she can stay with family like us. But it's one of those things that we do see a lot of our mature age locals that are in our smaller communities that do move to Townsville for that reason is what we do offer.
Okay. And there's just so much. We've got pages and pages of projects that are underway or coming up for Townsville. But tell us about this one. It's a big one. It's almost $500 million. It's called the Hive. That's something that's coming up for Townsville and the waterfront areas.
To be honest, I haven't heard much about that one. That I believe is from the stadium through to the Strand.
Links in with what is known as the Townsville Marine Tourism Precinct. It's proposed. It includes the Queen's Hotel. There's all sorts of things planned for that, apparently.
So that's had a little bit of red tape and whatnot. The last I heard. So that one, that's probably why it's been on the back burner. But I do believe that will incorporate across the road from where that is that we have the Great Barrier Marine Centre, and then that'll link with the boardwalk all along the precinct to the stadium, Terry. So they've started that first stage of the boardwalk to Victoria Bridge.
There's so much. What I often think when I'm looking at a place like Townsville, and you look at the list of projects that are proposed, and you add it up, and it's $20 or $25 billion, you think, well, it's not all going to happen. But if only a third of it happens, it's massive for a city of 200,000 people. And I think that's what the future holds for Townsville. A lot of economic activity and jobs, and therefore demand for real estate coming out of that infrastructure spend.
Yeah, and it comes back to belief. Our business leaders, our business owners, and our community believe that Townsville not only is a great place to live and bring your family up in that, but believe that we are the capital of North Queensland, outside of Brisbane, and basically that's what we want to be seen as. So we have a lot of followers in that in making Townsville work. The council itself spends a lot of money in our main attraction areas, and which is the Strand precinct along our esplanade there, and forever upgrading that. So that's I suppose where most visitors go is to our Strand, and then from there we can go out to Charters Towers. From Townsville we can go up to Paluma, which is a national park. We can then proceed and go Cairns north, or we can go south down to Mackay. So there's so much in our region or the surrounding Townsville that's why we make we call ourselves the capital of North Queensland. Yeah.
Okay, Scott. Well, I think we've covered a lot of bases in our discussion today. We've talked about the population growth, the infrastructure that's in place, but in particular the infrastructure that's coming up. We've talked about the property market in terms of low vacancies, high rental yields, and a very high level of affordability. It's quite an attractive package for property buyers of all sorts. What do you think is the number one selling point for Townsville coming out of all of that?
Oh, look, for me, it offers everything. So for you to move to Townsville, or if you were to invest in Townsville, you basically got everything for your prospective tenant or for yourself to live here. You're not going to miss out on anything that a capital city offers, as far as I believe. One of the things I haven't touched on, Terry, but I have a spreadsheet, and I've been keeping that for 2 years, and properties on the market just on 2 years ago was over 3,200. So that's how many properties we had on the market. Prior to COVID, that was at about 2,700. And right now, as of Monday, I do those stats, we're down to 2,400. So I've seen, I look back to when Townsville was, almost, going pretty strong. And was when we had about 15 to 17, 1,800 properties on the market. So if we've still got an over, supply of, say, 500 or 600 properties, we're not far off for something to happen if we keep this trajectory. Yeah. So it's one of those things that I just have been keeping an eye on for myself. And I mentioned to the team, at our sales meetings on Wednesday, what the number is. And yesterday it was at 2427, I think. So 2,427 properties on the market. And that's everything, Terry. That's from land to complex of units to houses, to townhouses and units. Regardless of that number, I believe if we can get that under 2,000, then Townsville, I could see that those green shoots are going to sprout even higher. Also do that for rental properties as well, and the drop since April on that has been huge, as the vacancy rate reflects. So for Townsville, I'm a bit biased, born and bred here, have no reason, I've never lived anywhere else. So I'm passionate about the place, and I'm passionate for our landlords and our all our clients and customers. So it just offers everything. You have access to the best facilities as far as we're concerned, and sometimes those facilities, to be honest, get underused by the community. Okay, no, it's a great package. I've been a fan of Townsville as a city for a long time, but from someone who's a researcher and looks at things from the viewpoint of the economy and the infrastructure, it's a real standout for me nationally as a place that's got a massive future because of what it already has, but what's coming up in its near future. So I'm a strong advocate of Townsville as a place that people should consider as a place to live, but also for property investors looking for something to buy that's affordable, has great rental yields, and more importantly for investors, great prospects for capital growth. Yeah, absolutely, mate. And anyone who's watching, just go to www.pagepearce.com.au, have a look at our properties, and just click on the links, and we'll contact them directly and see if we can fix them up. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a great note to finish on, Todd. Thanks for the chat today. So I've enjoyed the discussion. Always enjoyed talking about Townsville. I love talking about regional Australia. I think it's very underrated in terms of the mindset of property investors. So I'd urge everybody out there watching and listening to consider Townsville for all sorts of reasons. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for the opportunity. And if you're interested, Todd Pearce of Page and Pearce is the guy to talk to. Okay, thanks, Todd. No worries. Let's do it again sometime in the future and do an update. Well, let's do that, mate. We might even do it in 6 months to see what, if our predictions are any good.
Okay. Thanks everybody for participating and watching. Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au signing off. Bye for now.